Welcome to the rice fields, motherfucker! Welcome!
Heyo, Pixel Hipster from the future here. Okay, so halfway through writing this, something came across my mind, so I'm going to preface this video by saying, when dealing with topics like incel culture, sexism and misogyny and sexual harassment, I'm probably going to inadvertently downplay it due to the fact that I am a male and that sort of stuff is alien to me, and the sexual harassment I've personally experienced is very different. The last thing I want to do is accidentally downplay the sexism that some women face. Even though this is an opinion piece and my subjective analytical interpretation, I'm going to acknowledge that up front. This is my male perspective, and obviously this is going to have implicit male bias. I'm obviously going to be more sympathetic to the men in this discussion. I just want to get that out of the way first, because I feel like that's a thing people might overlook when watching this video. I'm also going to play devil's advocate here by linking some quality work written by some great women in my references. It covers the same sort of topic but from the female perspective. Check them out, there is good stuff there. Also, once again, this goes without saying, this is my personal take on this topic and is no way definitive. Also, this probably goes without saying as well, this video is going to have a ton of racism in it because the subject matter. Okay, onto the video now. Good vibes, much love.
Welcome to the rice fields, motherfucker!
So right now you're probably a little bit confused. I mentioned the word sexism before. The title of the video is RiceCels, Rice Whores, and WMAF / fetish couples. You're probably a little taken back. What is a RiceCel? What is a rice whore? What is and how do I even pronounce WMAF and fetish couples? Like, what the fuck? You're also probably wondering how this relates back into internalized racism. All these questions will be answered in due time. This video, in very broad strokes, is about examining the social imperatives and cultural aspects of Asian societal culture that leads to people of Asian descent suffering from internalized racism. History and how the obsession with Eurocentric features in Asian culture is very destructive. Also, the ways in which Asian men and women tend to deal with these cultures that incentivize self-hatred. I'll try my best to display how this all flows into each other. I'm making this due to the fact that many people on the right and some people on the left tend to hold Asian society to this model standard. Many people in the political zeitgeist don't really care or are oblivious to the toxic ramifications of internalized racism within Asian culture. Heads up to everyone, this is going to be a very rough subject, and for me especially, it hurt a lot to read up on this stuff. Before we get on with the video, for those who don't know what internalized racism is, some hipster trash made a video about it. Go watch it. Look at this Tim Pool looking beanie piece of hipster garbage. Beta man. If you don't know what the concept of internalized racism is, let me give you the quick truncated version here. In the West, in Western society, where racial prejudice thrives in politics, communities, institutions, and pop culture, it's difficult for racial minorities to avoid absorbing racist messages that are constantly bombarded to them. Thus, people of color sometimes adopt a white supremacist mindset that results in self-hatred of their respective racial group. Minorities suffering from internalized racism, for example, may loathe their physical characteristics that make them racially distinct, such as skin color, hair texture, and eye shape. Others may stereotype those from their racial group and refuse to associate with them. More into that later. And some try to outright identify as white. Overall, minorities suffering from internalized racism buy into the notion that whites are superior to people of color. Think of Stockholm Syndrome, but in a racial sphere or a racially motivated inferiority complex. Anyway, next thing now, transition.
Inside submarine, Vera sailors worked in maze of intricate machinery, indicators and control levers. Oh, very, very technical.
Part 1. Let's do some history. So back in the age of Asian feudalism, before the continent industrialized, nobility of one's stature was inferred by the fairness of one's skin. This is to do with lifestyle of the nobles and genetic skin pigmentation. Noble men, and especially noble women, in most Asian cultures spend a lot of their times indoors and away from sunlight, while peasants and low-class people on the other hand spend their time outdoors under the sun, causing their skin to darken. When I say darkening, I'm obviously referring to tanning, melatonin levels, and what have you. I won't bore you with the details here. In unacademic words, Asian skin can tan a real good and easy. In short, this social imperative still remains within East Asian culture. Having lighter, whiter skin is synonymous with being beautiful, upper class, and noble, while having darker skin is synonymous with being poor, ugly, and a peasant.
I love white. White is clean. White is pure. White is beautiful. Moss View makes my skin whiter.
You see this sort of implicit messaging from products to advertising that perpetuates this nonsense everywhere in Asia. Skin bleaching, white toning cream, airbrush photos, the list just goes on and on. If you aren't already aware, this is the concept of colorism. It's basically the Family Guy meme. Like, no, seriously, colorism is essentially a term that describes discrimination based on skin color. How light-skinned you are correlating to how well you are subconsciously viewed by others. It's a form of prejudice or discrimination usually from members of the same race, in which people are treated differently based on the social implications from cultural meanings attached to skin color. You see this whole debate a lot in black culture, hashtag light skin sisters versus dark skin sisters. Anyway, back to Asian colorism. If you're wondering, yes, this sort of social imperative has a lot of bad implications that we'll get into later. Now back to history. World War II time. Japan colonizes Korea and many other East Asian countries from 1910 to 1945. During this time, Japanese men and women were largely influenced by white and European beauty ideals in that they thought them to be modern and desirable. Hitler even referred to the Japanese as honorary Aryans, or in English as honorary whites. Fucking what an absolute dickhead. Jesus, Hitler, either grow a beard or shave that square off your face. Fuck off, Hitler. Pixel Hipster destroys Hitler with facts and logic. Following liberation from Japan and the Axis power, the value of whiteness and appearing white began to influence Asia and Asian individuals at the time. Over 70 years later, this influence for a preference for a importance placed upon appearing more white still permeates Asian culture. From TVs to movies to anime, K-pop, fashion, nose straightening, skin lightening, lip injections, double eyelid surgery, colored pupils, colored hair, and Western mannerisms. Like, Jesus Christ, this list goes on and on. Also, not to mention white Western imperialism and just regular old colonialism that happened before and after. I don't have enough time to cover all the other stuff. I'm just sticking to the key beats. Unfortunately, this obviously has a bit of a racial component and a lot of problematic implications, with other groups with different skin complexions being treated differently. So due to these societal and cultural norms, in broad strokes here, darker people are treated pretty badly in Asia. The news is this. The next in line for this agenda are the gooks, because they're not pathetic. Whatever you think of them, they run their own countries and don't need anyone. By the Jewish Marxist definitions, that means they are oppressors. Yeah, fucking Jesus Christ. While on the other hand, white people are pretty much worshipped and have many inherent privileges provided to them when traveling abroad to Asia.
Korean people in general have gone out of their way for us.
My grandma loves white people, and then my mom loves white people, and then my aunt is also like obsessed.
No, I've always liked Caucasian skin. The pinkish, whitish.
The pale, pasty white hand.
Yeah, see, look at that. Of course, like the knuckles count too, like that. Like, I like the size. I just like Caucasian skin.
And finally, on top of all this, post-1945, Hollywood for the past 100 years has created and reiterated dozens of harmful stereotypes and racially motivated nonsense. But the Hollywood side is also too long to get into right now. So overall, you have this really weird dichotomy here. On one hand, you have these cultures that are really proud of their own heritage, but on the other hand, you have a capitalist superpower nightmare that hates everything about itself and promotes products and pop culture that worships Western Eurocentric ideals, in the process destroying its own people's self-worth. This clusterfuck kind of falls under the banner of what Edward W. Said coined as Orientalism, essentially Asia being stereotyped in a way that is regarded as embodying and pandering to a white colonist mindset. The topic of Orientalism is for another day though. It's pretty weird and interesting stuff. What I'm getting at here is history is its own form of storytelling, and for a long time now, white people have been the sole authors of the overall narrative. And I feel like we need to change that, because this stuff is a big problem. Also, disclaimer here, none of this stuff is mutually exclusive to Asian culture. This also happens in Indian culture, black culture, Mexican culture, even some white cultures. Anyway, from here, let's talk about gendered racism in Western countries and talk about how this affects Asian men and Asian women in different ways.
I love rice. Rice.
Part 2. The rice cell.
Every day I go out trying to get by and do the bare minimum to keep myself alive, trying to forget my predicament. Every day I find myself among hundreds, if not thousands of women. I'm really fucking sick of it. All those repulsive -4 out of 10 noodle whores with no redeemable physical or personal qualities latching onto their lanky white boyfriend who is a herb by white standards but a prince charming to those treacherous whores, and mug them to hell and back by virtue of being their girlfriend, being a disgusting rice cunt reviled by all sane men, makes me want to puke.
I've always found the topic of inceldom and incel culture quite fascinating. It's something I couldn't really comprehend and properly wrap my head around until recently. I think this is probably stemming from the fact I lost my virginity when I was very young. My virginity was aggressively taken from me by this girl at the age of 13 at the very beginning of high school, and ever since then I've been pursuing and having dozens of sexual experiences, but I always know deep down inside none of it will ever reach the euphoria I experienced in my early adolescence, and the only reason I pursue and haven't talked about sex so much is to overcompensate for my lack of personality. Oh my god, I just had an existential crisis. Anyway, the rice cell. The rice cell is a... sorry, that's a photo of Andy. No, how did that get in there? Oops. The rice cell is a subset of a subset of a subset of the incel community. Within the incel community, there is the race cell, and within the race cell, there is the rice cell. Are you guys keeping up with me? This is gonna get real complicated. The rice cell holds two philosophical beliefs, the black pill world philosophy and the rice pill world philosophy. What is with these guys and their fucking pills? Like, is it a metaphor for being off your meds? Like, the black pill worldview is a collection of uncomfortable truths about romance and dating. It's a large body of scientific evidence stemming from evolutionary biology and sociology. The rice pill philosophy worldview is accompanying belief that male inceldom is all or at least partially factored in by their East Asian heritage. Being half Asian is also sufficient for causing inceldom and becoming a quote-unquote rice cell. Rice cells attribute their failure in the dating market to the fact that most women, including their own, reject Asian men on sight. And they're not 100% wrong here. All the stuff I've brought up previously proves the point. There's tons of research into the subject about Asian sexual racism. The rice cell mentality is one of hopeless internalized racism pushed upon these poor guys. They believe that they are inferior because of their race, can't get laid, their own women hate them, abandoning them to rot, and they should just accept the hopelessness of their reality and kill themselves. One of the most famous rice cells is the fairly well-known British food blogger by the name of Wilkes Madrid. Wilkes Madrid wrote in his manifesto, "To the ladies out there, I want to be clear, I am not angry with you. You are just doing what you are genetically programmed to do. However, I am angry at the continual stream of people who are lying to me. That is unacceptable. Many thanks to all for making the last 10 months of my life more bearable. Thank you all, and I wish you the best. Peace and love to all." Those were the last words he wrote before he killed himself on February 8th of 2013. Yeah. It sucks to be a rice cell, clearly. Well, life is really unfair for these guys. I have to acknowledge something I've been skirting around here. And how can I put this gently, but these guys, while their lives are horrible and they're in pain and it's sad and I wish they weren't in pain, these guys are also misogynists and sexist and pretty much very racist. If there's an is, they're probably it. Not all of them, but most of them. I mean, they call themselves RiceCels for fuck's sake. That, like, come on. Also, some of these guys are a bit murder happy, like the guy I mentioned in the very beginning of this part. They're not doing so hot. And, you know, this sucks and it's got to change.
How can we increase the number of beautiful Nordic females and decrease and hopefully remove all noodle whores from existence?
Like, Jesus Christ, like, for these guys, I just want to say, like, go read and listen and watch some Jordan Peterson, like, clean your room, go to the gym, get laid, like, get your act together, and after you're all said and done, go watch the Jordan Peterson debunking videos and become a sexy cultural Marxist. Like, it's not that hard, guys, like, and, like, for the love of God, like, please don't kill anyone or yourself. Like, life is shit, and life is unfair, and yeah, your female counterparts probably have it a lot easier. But at the end of the day, life isn't fair, and you gotta work hard with what you got.
I love Donald Trump. It's for me.
Like with my friends often say I'm the most racist person they know against Asians.
Where's the good man who's dedicated to his wife and family instead of the players? Who has an Ivy League education, earns 6 figures, and is socially upwards mobile?
Hey, that's me. You want a dick?
But you're Asian. It'd be like dating my brother. Strong, independent-minded female like myself needs to be liberated from the evil Asian patriarchy.
Part 3. The Rice Hole.
It is glorious to be used by a white man. White people just don't know how glorious, how have-face it is for a lowly chink woman to be fucked by a white man. Sometimes even just being a whore to a white man means being so much superior than other Chinese women.
In online discourse, the rice whore goes by many different names. I've showed a few already. Rice whores, rice sluts, rice cunts, noodle bitches, noodle whores, loos, Asian feminazis. The list goes on a whole bunch of gross other slurs. Obviously all racist and sexist, but anyway. I'm going to stick with rice whore for this video because it pairs well with Rice-Cel, and I think you guys need to hear the gross terminology to fully understand the big picture. So the rice whore in almost every way is the fundamental opposite to the Rice-Cel. While both suffer from deep-seated cultural internalized racism and white worship, the rice whore does the opposite. They hate themselves, Asian culture, and worship white men and white culture, but they use their own Orientalism to marry into whiteness, quote unquote. They especially have a very toxic and hostile hatred towards Asian men. This is due to the fact they hate the Asian aspect about themselves, and the easiest way to move away from that is by hating on their own kind. Urban Dictionary defined the rice whore phenomenon as a woman of Asian descent who hates themselves and does anything to become and assimilate into white culture, usually by worshipping pink dick. What? This is also to do with the concept of honorary whites. We kind of already touched upon this earlier, but anyway. There's a lot of discourse in real life and online whether or not Asian women are even POCs or women of color anymore. Like, there's a lot of people discussing whether or not if they even count. Many Asian women refer to themselves and view themselves as honorary whites, and many white men also perceive them as such. It's kind of how the Irish weren't considered white until the late 20th century, and how Jewish people aren't really viewed as being white as well. I personally lean towards the stance of, yeah, they are, but not really. They are POCs in some sense of the term, but they do get preferential treatment in comparison to, say, other women of color. Anyway, the rice whore comes in many different political flavors. You of course have the alt-right, self-hating ones, which are pretty much open with their internalized racism, white worship, and white nationalism. And how can I put this nicely? Self-hating alt-right Asian women, they're not too fond of black people. Yeah. While the right-wing conservative rice whores are the worst, I want to focus on the far-left radical rice whores. I want to make a really interesting comparison here. I don't think anyone else has made this comparison before. The far-left radical rice whore are essentially Asian TERFs. For those who don't know what a TERF is, it stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist, a person who uses the language of feminism to disguise their own bigotry and transphobia. The technical term for a far-left radical rice whore would be an Asian exclusionary radical feminist. A woman of Asian descent who disguises their own self-hate, white worship, internalized racism, and the outright hatred towards Asian men with the language of feminism. I usually don't like to name names on this channel because I really detest call-out culture and cancel culture, but the women I am referring to is Celeste NG and her gang of supporters. I feel like this quote from What is Internalized Depression and Why Don't We Study It? Acknowledging Racism's Hidden Injuries by sociologist Karen D. Pike summed it up the best. Also, while I'm talking about her, I just want to recommend her right now. She does some really good stuff. For a woman who doesn't have any personal stake in these topics, she has a really interesting nuanced understanding of what internalized racism is. And I feel like her white perspective gives a really detached, objective analysis. Anyway, here's the quote. Consider the case of women of color and non-Western women who pursue white, Western men as romantic partners. Feminist scholars find that many such women who describe a romantic preference for white Western men commonly reiterate a globally circulating discourse that exalts Western masculinity as more egalitarian and superior to that of non-Western and non-white men. Some interpret this resistance to the patriarchy of co-ethnic men. I argue, however, that such resistance is limited. While this discourse and the romantic relations with white Western men it encourages might improve the life chances of some women, this form of resistance relies on the reiteration and internalization of an ideology of white West men's global supremacy. That is, this form of gender oppression rests firmly on the internalization and reproduction of racial oppression. In my own words now, when these radical feminists rationalize their preference for white men and or outright attack those who criticize their preference for white men, it only serves to uphold a white supremacist hierarchy that they claim to be against. It is, in other words, just another form of self-hate and internalized racism. Reiterating this hashtag is just a preference for white guys is not a form of resistance from these supposed patriarchal structures these radical feminists want to take down so badly. It's an endorsement on them. These radical feminists are either implicit or clueless in their own subordination. This brand of radical Asian feminism is inherently toxic. From what I've seen in political discourse, and especially left-wing political discourse, surrounding any Asian issue, the surrounding Asian issues are exclusively written and discussed by these toxic, problematic women. Not only does it demonize and exclude Asian men, leading them to take up reactionary mindsets, I can personally attest to that, openly perpetuates horrible discourse that hurts Asian women while continually tripping over its own hypocrisy. Asian feminists like Celeste NG are not only bad feminists, they're bad people. If it wasn't clear, I don't like Celeste NG and her crew. I think they're garbo. They can live their own lives however they want to, but they have the responsibility as public figures. So when they use identity politics and their own subjective understanding of history to minimize the pain of people in the present, it's disgusting. It's semantic fucking nonsense which they're clearly aware of. And to be honest, sometimes these women are so bad they are no different from the women who write these racist blog posts. Sorry, I had to cool off there for a second. I don't usually like getting angry on this channel. Many Asian men believe, because of these women, that Asian men are the only minority demographic it's okay to discriminate against. Let's be real here, they're not wrong. These type of women are probably just going to ignore my criticism and attack me on some arbitrary thing, so I'm not even going to try and address them here right now. To cap this off, I think regular non-Asian left-wing people and regular feminists need to get better in identifying this sort of stuff and actively calling it out. I personally think I went a little bit too easy on these women and I could have been a lot harsher. Referring to these women as even feminists is a bit of a stretch. They're morons who hate their own gender and racial identity. Feminism, from my understanding, is about gender equality, and these women don't care about that. At the end of the day, these women are explicitly complicit in their own subordination. How's that for fucking real feminism, you bitches? I fucked it. I was so close. I had the moral high ground.
I'm married to an Oriental woman.
Why do I only date Asian women? They're exotic. And unlike white women, they know what it means to be a woman.
Jews. Look, I told you in our last interview, I'm actually married to an Asian woman. I have mixed race kids. I wasn't awoke when that happened. I mean, I have no regrets. My family, I would die for them. Jews.
Part 4. WMAF, the alt-right, sex pats, mass shooters, and a whole bunch of garbage. Can we please just fucking end this video already? It's so long! German gook kids together, which I worship and adore. Our cultures clash, physical differences and dichotomous relationship is an enjoyable adventure every day. Sure, I joke about Hitler. Oh, that is a fucking brilliant way to start off any conversation. I also don't like living in black communities. Oh, for fuck's sake. I also think the Jews are dangerous. The business and political ones at least. And yes, I question the Holocaust. Am I racist? Maybe. Who knows? Who cares? One thing I'm certain of is that I am a good husband and a good father. Rather than working hard for money, I use my military pension and sporadic work to live simple and spend time with my kids. Fuck up, cunt. Oh my... ah! Oh my god, how much do... Oh, there's still more. There's still another paragraph. Asian racism towards Asians? Sure, my wife does that. At least he's honest. At least he's honest. 100% of Filipino celebrities are 50 to 90% European. People there are obsessed with European physiology and are experts in the art of self-hating, revering Europeans for their cultures and civilization. I think is great. Does being a racist like affect your fucking grammar? Like, I admire my boy's gook eyes, big lips, and brown skin. Haha, I'm not racist towards Euros, I just love my wife. What is happening? I've gone in too deep. I've gone in too deep. So the term WMAF is an acronym. It stands for White Man, Asian Female. It refers to a toxic interracial relationship that's built on top of fetishization. Fuck it, I'm not even gonna recall that. We're sticking with this. E.g., WMAF equals fetish couples. In the past 10 years, at one point or another, you probably heard of the term yellow fever. Basically, white people fetishizing Asian stuff. Many Asian feminists will present the evil white man as having a sexual fetish fantasies towards Asian women. And while that is true, I have heard first-hand horror stories from my female Asian friends. Some of these white guys are absolutely repulsive, and I think, yeah, they need to be put in a fucking asylum somewhere. I feel like this topic is a little bit more nuanced than white man bad.
Stop fetishizing us.
Yellow fever goes both ways. There are women who play into and love being fetishized.
You're a white fetishist?
Yeah. So?
WMAF fetish couples are built on one half yellow fever and the other half Asian internalized racism and white worship. Many white men nowadays feel cucked and emasculated and dissatisfied with Western women. They perceive them as being corrupted and ruined by mainstream radicalized feminism, cultural Marxism, and dangerous multiculturalism. Also, on top of that, they feel double emasculated and cucked by the alpha gym chad black guys stealing their women. In reality, white women just don't want anything to do with these guys because they're a bunch of alt-right pussies. Anyway, white men are now currently turning towards Asian women as a cheap alternative, supposedly because they are more feminine, submissive, and womanly. In short, white men want a submissive husband and Asian women want to be white and have white babies. The dads and especially mums want their kid to have that sweet, sweet Aryan DNA. But ironically, 9 times out of 10, that is very unlikely. This usually leads to the children being abused by their parents and leading to the kids developing their own internalized racism. Coming full circle now, many of these couples have Asian looking sons who take up the identity of the Rice-Cel. In the worst case scenario, some of these guys end up killing their parents and people around them. Examples of this being Alex Bucker, Daniel Hollicksclaw, and the Supreme Gentleman himself, Elliot fucking Roger. This relationship dynamic has historically been a pretty surefire mixture in creating mass shooters. Part 5. Bonus stuff. Okay, here's just a bunch of outliers that didn't have enough time to make into their own section. So WMAF is basically the opposite to WMAF. While it's usually just a loving, caring relationship and is no way near terrible as WMAF, watch out for white chicks who are like way too into and fetishize K-pop, anime, and Asian culture, and also watch out for like Asian guys who put white girls up on a pedestal. That can be pretty unhealthy, like nowhere near as bad as say any of the other stuff we talk about, but it can be gross. Be wary of Changs, my boys. Changs are the opposite to Rice-Cels. They're basically Asian fuckboys, just like regular fuckboys, you know, they're fucking garbage. Watch out for the concept of mixed race fetishization, the myth that being biracial somehow makes you better looking and just better. This is a complete fabrication by many Asian cultures. Yeah. Part 5, final thoughts. So, what am I trying to say with this video? Well, so basically what I'm saying is I'm a Chang and I'm a Hafu Chang and don't have interracial relationships. Yeah, don't do it, guys. As a mixed person, I can personally attest to this. Like, seriously, like, do we need more of me in the world? Like, do we need any more pixel hipsters? Like, we got lucky with me. I was one brain cell away from being Elliot Rodger. Like, no, seriously. What I'm hoping with this video is that it can be a good racial equity tool to raise awareness. Nowadays, most people know these types of fetish couples, and rice whores and RiceCels are garbo. It's just about confirming these assumptions. I'll be real with you, I don't like thinking about this sort of stuff. I hate talking about it, I hate thinking about it. I usually do my best to just tune it out and ignore it. It's pretty ironic considering I wasted a month making this fucking video. Many leftists overlook Asian issues, and that's gotta change. They see things like interracial relationships and they think how progressive without actually looking at the underlying factors and history. And going forward, I hope this changes. I want to cap this off by saying love is colorblind, but also most love is built on cultural and social imperatives. And especially in this sort of dynamics, they're usually relating back to Western Eurocentric ideals, and that is far from perfect. We are finally getting at a point where we can write our own history, so I don't think we should waste this chance. I hope everyone, doesn't matter who you are or what you are, goes out there and is kind to each other. And you have my permission, you have my permission now to love each other. Much love and good vibes. Thank you. Thank you. What is language? I write for a living and I fucking don't know. Thank you if you made it this far. Hit that bell. Please like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, share with your friends online, post it somewhere online, do a blood sacrifice. Massive shout out and thanks to Dirty Sanchez on Reddit for getting me a lot of this footage. And yeah, I love all the comments. You guys are really nice and sweet and sincere people, and you're also really fucking funny. I'm going to take a little break from making political videos because these take a lot out of me. Because these videos take a lot out of me. Yeah, that was words. They take a lot of emotional labor to produce. The two next videos are probably going to be pop culture related instead. So anyway, follow me on Twitter at hipsterbruce. No, fucking hell, that's my old Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at pixel_hipster, capital P, capital H. I post memes and I post stuff there. Okay, now I'm going to do my Patreon thing. Okay, first up for the people in the $10 a month tier, my very own Patreon Changs. Thank you to Barely Contained, the most barely contained person who is Bears and Lee. Welcome to Deus Ex I said it's written Deus Ex Caffeina, not the other one. Thank you to Michael Grimes. I'm sorry, can you please get in contact with me? I think I've said it like wrong every single time. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but thank you for giving me money. I really appreciate that. Anyway, thanks to my other Patreon legends at TheoryPleb, Adam McAvia, Adita J. Sardashay, yep, that's it, Alexander de Los Santos, Bannock Tube, Brendan Stolnaker, Jeff Patini, Maxstar, Mayday, Mike S, Peter Coffin, Rory brackets Everybody Talks. Who is talking Rory? What does it even mean? Anyway, Theo Kelevovich. Anyway, this video is getting so long. Thank you, everyone. I'm trying to wrap this up, guys. Okay, I'm going to cut this fast as possible. I'm sorry. I'll do it slower next time. Thank you to everyone on Patreon. I can't believe you guys give me any money from this just existential nightmare that I call a video essay. If you want to see your names next to these good boys and women, please go support me on Patreon. It's patreon.com/pixel_hipster, capital H, capital P. Oh, you guys have my highest praise and my most grateful thanks. I hope the world can get fucking into a utopian perfect society. I don't know anymore. I'm so tired. It's like 3 AM and I'm fucking editing. Ah! Much love. I love you all.